Hey, church family, another mini message for you today coming out of Genesis chapter 17. I'm going to pick up today in verse 9. It says, Then God said to Abraham, Your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. So, this is where God introduces this idea of the sign of the covenant of circumcision. And this is something still today that the Jewish people do religiously, so to speak. I mean, it is something that even the more secular Jewish people follow this still. It's just become an ingrained part of their culture when a child is born. There's the bris. So it's right there with them still today, talking back 4,000 years. Now we're moving forward, still happening on that 8th day. It's like, for myself growing up in kind of a Baptist background, one of the things that right before a child's born, we have a baby shower, right? Everybody comes and give presents and there's celebrations and they play games. It's all fun. Well, this is something the Jewish people do still to this day. It was that physical sign of the covenant. One of the really interesting things here is that Abraham wasn't asked to do a lot, okay? He was told to leave his home and go to this land. After that, he hasn't really been asked to do anything. He's wandered up and down the land. He's living in tents. But here, God tells him, for your side of the covenant, you do this. See, at the end of the day, God's holding up the vast majority of this covenant. He's the one propping the whole thing up. He's the one that's fulfilling it. This was the part that he asked Abraham to do. So he has something to finally do here. So circumcision was not unknown in the world at this time. There were other cultures and groups that did this, and it's what God asked them to do. So it was a cutting away of flesh, which coincides with the idea of, as believers, whether going back to the Abrahamic covenant or to the new covenant, that there was a parting with the world, that we're letting go of our flesh, our sin nature, so to speak, and dedicating ourselves to the Lord. Now, one of the most interesting things for me in this is when God commands him to do it on the 8th day. On that 8th day, the child's immune system and clotting factors in their body are at a peak. I'm fascinated by this. That as God told Abraham to do this, he told him to do it at a moment when it would be safest for the child. See, God covers all the bases. Nothing's out of his range. Nothing's out of his purview. Nothing is by accident. Nothing is left to chance. God was, in giving them this sign, by saying the 8th day, he was actually protecting the children and making sure that it would be the easiest on them at that moment. See, God provides, God protects, God understands the long game. Have a blessed day. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow.